Baby snakes are supposed to be scared of us. Some snakes are more confident than others, but even the most confident snake is supposed to be scared of us. So what do I do here? Because I don't want my snake to be scared of me. Like, how long do I hold her for? And what time of day do I even work with her? What if she doesn't like me? Welcome to the Green Room. I'm Bob Bledsoe. By the way, this was supposed to be a herping Utah video. I went to Utah and went herping several times with my friend Amy, but we didn't find enough to make a full video. So here's a couple bonus seconds of a few things that we did find. I haven't even seen a lizard. Have you even seen a tiny lizard?
No.
But we're looking. Oh, we also found a fox who did not want to be friends with me, and that was a little upsetting, but cool to see a fox anyway. Thanks for taking that little detour with me. This is great timing for this video because I have a very confident, very tiny 2-month-old superdwarf reticulated python in quarantine right now. That's the snake that I got at the US Arc thing, just in case you didn't catch the reveal in my live stream. But I also have a whole clutch of 3-week-old, pretty nervous ball pythons, and I need to socialize all these snakes. So let me show you what I do in both scenarios. Right, you're gonna socialize them, and then they're gonna be tame and not killers. Kent, do your fingers ever get sore from doing air quotes? There's this guy who owned a leopard, and he was all, "This is my tame leopard, he would never hurt anyone." Well, guess what? That guy ended up dead. Leopard got him? Inconclusive, they say he died of natural causes. But I say there's nothing more natural than a leopard killing a guy, so you tell me. Not your best story, Kent. Can you just do the camera thing? Yep. Great. Okay, let's start with baby ball pythons. These snakes are very vocal. When they first crawled out of the egg, they were hissing, they were running all over the place. They're a little bit better now, but still, they like to let me know how they feel about things. They haven't struck yet, but they're pretty nervous snakes. One of my favorite techniques to socialize them, I talk about a lot, but it works so well that it's worth mentioning a lot. And that is just opening their tub and putting my hand there and letting them come to my hand to tongue flick on it. I do this mostly without touching them, but sometimes they try to crawl out of their tub and I have to redirect them or put them back. But ideally, you're doing this without touching them, and when they go back into their tub, then you can close the enclosure. I like that I have a clear hatchling rack because I can see when my hatchlings are awake and moving around in the front of their tub. This is the time that I do this. Usually all of them are awake and moving around in the morning, early in the morning or in the evening. But sometimes during the day too. Hatchlings sometimes wake up and start moving around a little bit. And if I see them awake and moving around, I will crack a tub open and spend a couple minutes with them curiously and slowly creeping out. So there's a way to do this the right way, and that is trying to come from underneath the snake and letting them come to you. You have to be really watching them and kind of in tune to what they're doing. If you see the slightest flinch, you can slowly pull away a little bit until they start to come to you again. So there's kind of this back and forth thing. A lot of snakes will do the advance and retreat situation, and you can do that with your hand too, sort of mirroring their behavior. That really helps if you have your hand right in front of their nose and they're starting to feel like that's a confrontational hand and they start to back up. You can back up too, showing them that you're not confrontational. You're not trying to push it. So you just go at their pace. I'm just watching the snake's micro movements to tell me how the snake might be feeling at the time, and I'm reacting accordingly as best I can. We're not psychics, obviously, but you can sort of get an idea of how the snake is feeling in the moment by paying attention. I'm also a big believer in enrichment items because it allows the snake to experience different things and realize that just because something is new doesn't mean that it's dangerous. So when I first set these snakes up in their own tubs right after they shed, I don't give them any enrichment items because their new enclosure is their enrichment item. They're going to spend a week or so getting to know the enclosure, learning about their hides and their water dish and stuff like that. They don't need anything else at that point. But after that first week, after they eat or whatever, I might give them something new, and it's usually a paper towel roll. That's a really simple thing. It's got a different scent to it, and it's something that they can crawl through and crawl on top of, and they can check out that new thing and realize that it's not going to hurt them. As soon as they pee on it, it gets thrown away and replaced with something else. If they don't pee on it within, let's say, 5 days or a week or something, I'll probably replace it anyway with something new because I want to have things rotating in and out of their enclosure. So I might put a rock in there. I might put a fake plant in there. I might put another piece of cardboard thing in, just anything for them to experience that's new. This is really important because it gives their brains a new experience that wasn't dangerous for them to process. A snake that's not very confident is going to be pretty much scared of everything, and that's how they are in the wild. It's actually a really good way for them to survive if they're just nervous about everything and running away from new things. But they don't need that reaction as pets. So if we can give them some new experiences that aren't dangerous, they will slowly learn that different things are okay. And, you know, different snakes have different personalities, so you might get some that are just more nervous always than others, but you'll at least get some level of them being okay with new stuff. And that also translates to being okay with their keeper, handling them, interacting with them, things like that. Willow here is a very confident snake, but with snakes that are less confident, I'm not going to spend much time holding them at all. You know, a lot of times we hear the rule of 10 or 15 minutes each day or something like that. With a brand new baby snake that's not very confident, I'm not even going to go 10 minutes. So the goal is that if I'm holding the snake, I'm going to hold them until I feel them relaxing. So that might take a few minutes for them to go from like being super tense to relaxing in my hand and giving me those longer tongue flicks instead of short, quick tongue flicks. Once I see that the snake is kind of moving around like this and not afraid to stretch their body out a little bit, I'm going to let them do that for a little while. And then, and by a little while, I mean a minute or two. And before they decide that they're scared again, I'm going to show them their enclosure and allow them to put themselves back in their home. And I talk about this a lot too. I think it's good rather than plopping them down in their enclosure and letting them figure out where they are. That's kind of a scary experience. You want them to be able to see their enclosure and then choose to go in there. They're always going to choose to go in. But once they realize where they are, it takes them a minute. But you want them to be able to make their own choice to go back into their home. I think that's a really good way to end a handling session. You know, I always try to end on a positive note. I don't ever put a snake back if they were just scared, like if they're super tense and I put them back. I want them to remember that they had a decent experience where they were relaxed and then they got to choose to go back into their home. Like they found their own home. Even though I'm showing them with, putting their head near their enclosure, they're finding it on their own and getting to go back in there. That's a great positive experience for them. And by the way, I think a once a day handling session for a new snake is a great idea, but doing the thing where I'm showing them my hand is not a handling session, and I'm only doing that for about a minute or two anyway. So I can do that several times a day. They can have a couple sessions a day where if I see them in the front of their tub, I might open their tub and let them check out my hand, and then I close the tub. Maybe a couple hours later I see them again. I'm not going to do it every single time I see them, because if it makes them nervous, I don't want to train them that going to the front of their tub is a scary thing. But I might do that a couple times a day, 2 or 3 times, because I'm not handling them. It's a very quick little thing, and it gives them a little bit of repetition. Also, these are basic things that I'm doing right near their tub. Even if I'm handling them, I'm staying right here. I'm not moving and showing them a whole bunch of different things. I'm not trying to flood their brain with things that they have to process. I want to do kind of one thing at a time, take it slow, and just like I'm not going to dump a whole bunch of different enrichment items into a new nervous snake's enclosure. I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to do a toilet paper roll, then a fake plant, then something else. Once they have a chance to process the one item and interact with it a lot, give them a week with it or whatever, and then one more thing. So one at a time, just let them slowly process things. That's going to really help. You don't want to flood their brain. We're going to talk about what I do differently with my confident littlest superdwarf. But first I want to mention how this applies to adults that are nervous. What if you have an adult that's a nervous snake? And I'm going to do this while I scroll the horde of keepers over on Patreon who are helping to support the channel. So this is all great, but what if you have an adult that you just bought that never was socialized? The great news is you can use the exact same techniques. My big girl, Kata, is a great example. I've had Kata for 2 years, and I think she was 3 or 4 years old when I got her. She had been with a larger breeder and living in a tub without much human interaction and with, I think, no enrichment at all. So it took a while, but showing her my hand occasionally without messing with her, doing a bit of handling sessions, giving her enrichment in her enclosure worked really well. But the other thing I started doing with Kata, because she's such a big snake, is I let her free roam. And she was pretty nervous to do it at first, but now she is a pro free roamer and comes out a lot. That really helped her socialization. She'll actually come up to me. You know, she doesn't want to hang out with me. She's never going to choose to curl up in my lap. But if I'm in the way, she'll crawl over me rather than go around. So she has no problems choosing to come into contact with me. Thanks to those Patreon supporters and these channel sponsors. Black Box Cages, Lane Labs for your frozen rodents, and Gray Family Snakes. Now let's talk about my confident little superdwarf reticulated python. He's currently in quarantine and he's on paper, 2 hides, and a water dish. He's in a tub with a perch, so he can use his perch if he wants to, but I'm not giving him any enrichment inside the tub just because he came from an outside source, and I want to be able to monitor that enclosure as closely as possible for mites or any other potential problems that he has, and other enrichment items would just sort of obstruct me being able to see things. But he's a very confident snake, so I can give him more outside of his enclosure experiences. Now, this little snake is still pretty nervous at first when I pick him up, but that's to be expected with any snake, especially one that's the size of a worm. The reason I say that he's confident, though, is he doesn't hiss or strike or try to run away, and he quickly relaxes once he's in my hand. It just takes a minute for him to relax and start exploring or whatever. He just needs to take a moment to realize that he's safe and it's nothing dangerous that picked him up. So I still do my favorite socialization technique, which is allowing him to experience my hand on his own terms without physically touching him. But I also will bring him out into the quarantine room and hang out with him a little bit. I can bring him outside. I can give him more experiences than just sitting there next to his tub. I still want to stick with one thing at a time, though, especially if I bring him outside, because just being, going from indoors in his little tub to just being outside in my hand is a big deal. Like, that's enough. I don't need to be running around going, here, crawl on this plant, and here's another person, and check out the fence, and all this stuff. I can just sort of walk around with him and let him be in my hand. That's plenty for him. You can do this test with your own snake. If you have a snake who's relaxed and calm in your hand, and then you walk outside with them, they might tense up a little bit for a moment until they get used to the fact that they're now in a completely different environment. They're still in your hand. So you don't want to add the extra stress of taking them outside and then all of a sudden just plopping them down somewhere. So I can present this snake with a bit more than I normally would with the baby ball pythons because I know that he can handle it. But I still want to go slow, and I still don't want to freak him out, and I still want to be able to put him back in his enclosure while he's still having a good time. I mean, while he's not stressed. Having a good time just means he's not freaked out. So I'm still doing all those same things. I'm never gonna put him away if he's tense or stressed out. I'm gonna wait till he's calm and relaxed. Kind of with any snake, you don't want to get to the point where you go, oh, he's been out too long, he's freaking out, and then you put him back. You want to kind of have that sense of, okay, he's been out for a while, he's doing really well, this is a great time to put him back. The fact that there's a perch in his quarantine tub is great because I can wait till he's up on his perch, and then I can go in and change his paper towels, clean his enclosure, do all the things, and let him just sit there and watch me. It's a great way for him to observe me doing something in his enclosure without messing with him. It establishes that just because I've opened the enclosure and I'm doing something, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to pick him up and remove him from his comfortable spot. As much as I would love to pick him up and interact with him anytime he's out of his hide, this is really valuable for him to just observe me doing something with no physical contact. The key with socialization is to meet the animal where they're at and go at their pace. There's no need to rush this. You want the snake to decide how bold they want to be. It's not all about hands-on contact. In fact, you can do more without picking them up. It just takes a little bit of time and patience, and then you can have snakes that are like Willow and Dash. Here's another video you might like. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.